You're listening to episode 95, recap episode, The Best Advice from Year 2 Guests, Part 1. Welcome to the Grass Gets Greener podcast, the show for survivors by survivors. I'm your host, Melissa Wilson, a bullying survivor and anti-bullying advocate. And each week you'll hear from a survivor who has overcome a traumatic experience to go on to not only survive, but thrive, so that you can too, starting now. Hey there, welcome to this special recap episode of the podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in for it. And so we're getting to the end of year 2 here, and just like I did for the end of year 1, I've put together 2 recap episodes. So the first one is this week, and the second one will be next week. And what you're going to hear is a compilation of answers from all of my guests from the past year on their answer to the final question that I ask, which is, given what you know now, if you could go back to when you were going through your tough times and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be? And today we're going to hear from my guests from episodes 54 through 74. Before we get into that, though, I do just want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by audible.com. Audible is the premier provider of digital audiobooks. I signed up with them to get you a free audiobook download along with a 30-day free trial. They have over 180,000 titles, including some that have been mentioned on this show in the past, that you can choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or whatever you use as an MP3 player. So if this is something that interests you and you want to check it out, all you have to do is go to thegrassgetsgreener.com/audible, and you can go ahead and get your free audio download along with that 30-day free trial. So I think this episode is great whether you're a new listener or you're someone who has listened to each of the episodes that's going to be featured here in these recaps. And if you're a new listener, I think that this is a great introduction to the podcast. Of course, you can go back and check out all of the episodes that are there, but if that seems a little overwhelming, then, I think this is a great place to start with these 2 episodes here, and then also the 2 recap episodes from last year. And, just check those out and see if any of those guests resonate with you, and then, go check out those full episodes and just kind of go from there. And if you're someone who has listened to all of these episodes, well, first off, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. But also, I hope that for you that, this is just kind of a good recap, and a good refresher on everything that has been talked about over this past year. And whether you're a new listener or someone who has been listening all along, I hope that these 2 recap episodes, are a source of inspiration and encouragement for you, and something that, you can turn to if you ever need a little pick-me-up. I can say for myself that, I really enjoy putting these episodes together and having the opportunity to listen to everyone's answers again and just being inspired by that. It definitely gives me a little boost when I hear it. So I hope that, it does the same for you, and that's why I like to put these together so that we can just reflect back on the previous year. And also, like I said, if you're a new listener, I think it's a good starting point for you. So that's what we have going on with this episode and next week's episode. And so without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into it. And we're just going to get started with episode 54, and I'll be introducing each one as we go along. So I hope you enjoy, and I'll catch you at the end just to kind of wrap things up. Episode 54, Developing Skills to Deal with New Memories with Susan Jacoby.
Through all of this, I have become very spiritual, and I'm very connected to God as I see it. I get a lot of strength from that connection, and I'm not going to get into the conversation about who believes what and all that, because in the end it really doesn't matter. It's what makes you brings comfort to you. And during all the abusive years and the 20s and even my 30s, I basically had blown God off and felt very alone. But now, as I look back at it, his relationship with me was what kept me alive. I mean, you're just going to take my word for that, because I should not be alive, but I am. And I'm here to deliver a message. And I believe that's why I'm alive. And I would tell the child me that God loves me. That's definitely what I would say.
Episode 55, Being the Director of Your Life and Rewriting the Past, with Patrick Hodges.
Don't give up. I mean, that's basically what I would tell him, is don't give up. Don't give up on life. Things will get better. Don't let what's going on now, define who you are. I mean, I would give that advice to, anyone being bullied.
Episode 56, Setting Physical and Emotional Boundaries After Bullying, with Michael Phillips.
Not to take everything so personally. I feel like I just took everything too emotionally and too personally, that everyone and everything is out to get me. And I think if I've been able to look beyond that and just think, these people all have their own issues and problems, and that it's nothing personal against me, I think I could have felt a lot better about myself and been able to get out and do more and feel better about myself. I feel like I was a little deprived of growing up. I would have loved to have done a lot more in high school and been a lot more social and been more involved in a lot of stuff, that I just sort of went into a shell there, because I felt awful about myself. I felt like all these people are targeting me. What the hell is wrong with me? And I just wish I'd been able to look beyond that and think, screw these people. They have their own issues and problems. It's nothing personal against me. There's nothing wrong with me. I just need to go out and live my life.
Episode 58, Feeling Free, at Peace, and Full of Love, with Eva Ursano.
Probably to respect my parents more, to not be such a bad girl. I really didn't have any respect for my parents, and I was a really, really bad girl. And I'll admit to that. So I probably could have respected my parents more and understood where they were coming from. At that time, I didn't understand where they were coming from. Plus, I was a rebellious teenager, right? Mm-hmm. And you know what, and I that's the path I chose, and I didn't have to be a rebellious teenager. I could have been like my older sister. She was like the dream child. She never did anything wrong, and she respected my parents, and she was a very good girl, and I could have been like her, and I wasn't. So I probably could have respected my parents more, and probably been maybe a bit of a better girl. I was a bad girl. I was. So more respect. I was. So more respect. I should have respected authority in my parents more, and I didn't.
Episode 59, How to Use Your Past to Empower You Today, with Mike Pistorino.
Tell somebody. That's it. Just tell somebody. That was the thing that gave me my happiness. Talked about it. You don't have to be sad no more. Tell somebody. And, maybe I could have did it 5 years earlier. But you know what, Melissa? Maybe I needed that extra 5 years of pain to be able to do this so as well as I'm doing it now. I have my phone ringing off the hook for people who want me to come speak, which is great. I'm going to go do it all over the world. Go anywhere that I want to go. But I know I needed exactly what I got. I needed years of pain to be able to feel these kids' pain now. So when a little baby walks up to me and says, Uncle Joey's raping me, I could tell him, thank you, I'm proud of you, I love you, and it's over. It's over. It's completely over right now, because the cops are going to stop him, or somebody else is going to stop him. Somehow it's going to end today. And the police have been just wonderful. I'm working with one of the members of the FBI. He's amazing. And the sheriff's department has been amazing. And anytime I call anybody, even a local cop, say, listen, I got a tip on this guy, they're all over. Because nobody wants a child rapist in their city, in their town. And I would tell myself, just say something that can get better.
Episode 60, Going Beyond the Abuse to Thrive with Misa Leonessa.
I would really encourage you to find at least one person in your life, and this is what I would have told myself, I think, at the time, is to find at least one person in my life who could see me for who I really was and is glad to be with me, where I can express my joy and my hope, and I can also express my anger and my sadness and my despair, and still have that person be glad to be with me, to be fully known and loved, because it'll change everything. Isolation is our death sentence.
Episode 61, Building Communities of Hope, Healing, and Support with Christopher Anderson.
I've asked this question of myself a couple of times, and it seems like I always have a different answer depending on where I am. I think maybe the thing that I would go back in time and try to tell myself is, you will make it. You are strong enough, and you will make it. And just to let that kid know that he is worthy of being loved, because he spent so much time just believing that he wasn't. And I think there are so many other people out there who struggle with that, and so many kids who feel that way now, that sometimes just having somebody show up and just say, you're worthy of being loved, and planting that seed. If I could go back and do that, I would.
Episode 62, Healing from Complex PTSD After Bullying with Alan Eisenberg.
It's such a good question, and when you wrote me and you put it on there, and it's always so tough because it always sounds cliche when I say it, but I try to think of it as if I'm an adult approaching me as a kid, and I think the most I could say would be, believe in yourself and know that this is temporary and it will get better. This is temporary, but I always say, that's so hard. It's just so hard, because I've had two boys, and I know, the teenage years, and, but I think, the more we say it and the more we show it and the more they hear it, that they can realize that that's true. But when you're going through it, it's tough. But truly, I believe that they need to hear those things. They need to know that, this is their life now, not their life, and to get out of thinking that, life won't get better, because every time I read the news and see another child has killed themselves over bullying, or somebody's walked into a school with a gun, it just devastates me. It's one of those things that is just still happening too frequently. Mm-hmm. And it's a shame, because I read a really interesting quote. I'll kind of close my thoughts with this, that really woke me up, and it was somebody, I don't think they intentionally wrote it, but there was somebody recently knew a child had committed suicide in a local area here, and they had written it on Facebook, and somebody had written that it wasn't suicide, it was murder, that the person, the kid who did it, murdered himself, because now he'll never have the opportunity to find out who he really was. And so it was so interesting. I'd never seen it approached that way, but it's that idea that this isn't who you are. At the time you made that decision, you have this whole thing in front of you, and you just threw it all away. So in a way, I guess you could say, the younger person murdered the older, what the older person would have become, and you can always, it was just completely, one of those things where my jaw just dropped when I read it, because it's like, never thought about it like that. And it's true, yes. That we don't know. We don't know all the good things that are coming our way. and also to accept that your lot in life. Every 1% of our population is wealthy, so accept that your lot in life is probably this. And if you get lucky, you get lucky, but we should be satisfied with who we are, not with what we have or not with all these other things. And I think that's another important part of your life is, figure out who you are and what you want to be. And don't ever give up your dream, So for me, this is my dream. Talking to you is actually my dream, and I'm not being facetious. It's part of the bigger dream I have of trying to be the person I want to be and help spread these words and what we're talking about. And that's who I want to be.
Episode 63, Reframing the Narrative of Our Lives with Dan Griffin.
I saw that question and, tears came to my eyes when I read that in your...
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's such a powerful question. And part of my work that I've been doing in the past year or two has really been some of that inner child work that honestly, I just thought was hokey stuff. I didn't give it the time of day. And it was all because I was just so alienated from that part of me. And I was so much anger and shame about that part of me. And so as I think about it, if I could say anything, I think it is just going to be, you're going to be okay. You're going to get through this. You can do this. You're not alone. I've done visualizations, and 2 years ago, I could never have even done this, let alone talked about it publicly. But I've done visualizations of an adult going back and talking to that suicidal adolescent. And it just simply, the greatest gift I felt like I could give when I was doing that was just to listen and be present for that kid who had nobody, absolutely nobody to listen to his pain, or that he felt like he could share how much pain he was in. So that's honestly what I would do. I don't know that I would say a whole lot. I think it's more just, I would just try to be as present to that child in the pain that they were experiencing, and to let them know that a deep sense of love and compassion.
Episode 64, Using Mindfulness and Gratitude as Ways to Heal, with Lucy Chen.
There's many things I could tell her, my younger self, the very important thing is to love yourself. Just relax. Don't work so hard. But I also know that my younger self will not listen anyway. She wouldn't understand. She wouldn't listen. And she hated taking advice from other people at that time. So, I would tell her, but she wouldn't listen. So I think I would just let it be, because, whatever happened has already happened. So just to love myself now and relax now.
Episode 65, Moving Beyond Surviving to Living Fully, with Andrew O'Brien.
Stop pushing it down. Stop pushing it down, and stop pushing it down. The first thing that we all want to do is take that file and put it in the back file cabinet in our brain and act like we never have to open that file cabinet again every time anything negative happens in our life. And the more you push it down, the worse it gets. And so I would have told myself to attack every issue as it happened, instead of just letting it build up and build up and build up, because even the smallest issues become even larger when you have other issues that you haven't even attacked yet. So that's the one piece of advice I would have given myself, was stop ignoring it, because you're going to regret it.
Episode 66, Battling Through Addiction and Unresolved Childhood Trauma, with Chris Dorval.
Just keep going. There's a quote, I think it's Winston Churchill, that said, if you're going through hell, keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there were times in my life, multiple times in my life, where I just thought about giving up, or I thought about just resigning to, you know, being an active drug addict, and this is as good as it's going to get for me, or doing the rotating in and out of prison game. And, you know, and there was something in the back of my head that said, no, just keep going. You can do this. You can do this. And despite how difficult the odds seemed at times, it was just learning to just keep going and keep pushing through, and not giving up. And I think that if I could give any advice to anybody that's struggling, whether it's with addiction or, you know, mental health issues, or, you know, any responses to trauma, it's keep going. It can get better.
Episode 67, Getting Everything Back After Losing It All, with Natalie Calkins-Roundtree.
Love yourself. Love yourself. Everything starts with that. Because if you love yourself continuously, you will not, love yourself as your God would, no matter who your God is, as long as your God is telling you to love and be compassionate and not start wars and this and this and that, as long as your God, whoever that may be for you, as long as you're living that sense of love, that pure, unconditional love for yourself, there's no room for a whole lot of doubt or fear or self-loathing or negativity or letting people disrespect you, or there's no room for any of that. And it's a hard thing to do, to trust yourself enough to love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do that, everything else falls into place. You know everything's going to be okay. You're not alone. You know, it fills, to me, it fills every void.
Episode 68, How Travel Can Help Us Heal from Trauma, with Leanna Johnson.
Get help. Definitely get help. Because as you know, the one thing that I probably didn't stress as much as I was telling my story is that throughout that, you know, I talk about the past. Hindsight is 20/20. I can look at the past and I can say, okay, my PTSD didn't develop until about a year in, and then this happened, and then I had these symptoms, and then this happened again. And so I can see it all pretty well from this point of view. Obviously, it felt different going through it at the time. But the one thing that was missing throughout that entire 2.5, 3-year experience, sort of coming up to where I am now, is professional help. You know, when the first year, when I just didn't sort of react at all, I didn't feel like I needed it. I thought, oh, you know, I know some people get PTSD, but I probably didn't. I think I've just sort of moved past it, which is a clear mistake. And then as the symptoms developed, I just put it off, or I believed I could handle it myself, or because I was dealing with depression and other PTSD-related symptoms, that kind of deterred me from wanting to talk to anyone else about it. So, for one reason or another, I just did not get the help I needed. And it took several years. It took a new relationship and a pregnancy to finally tell myself, okay, I really, really need to do this. And this is happening. So this is the first, sort of a first for me. And so I beg you all, please, even if you don't think you need it, even if you think you'll be fine, even if the idea just scares the shit out of you, excuse my French, even if the idea just scares you completely and you can't deal with the thought of having to open up, please just try. And you don't have to spill your guts the first day. It's just having someone who knows what they're doing, who can help you be accountable in the day-to-day is really, really important. And I think that, and that's true of your business as well. If whether you have a solid career in a sit-down job that it has regular hours, or you're more of an entrepreneur, you can de-stress, you can You can find ways to manage stress by getting help from your friends, by getting help from those at work if you find your job very stressful. And I promise that will really help with your PTSD symptoms. So yeah, get help is that's the biggest lesson I've learned, and it's the biggest one I think I should pass on.
Episode 69, The Impact of Adoption on the Life of the Adoptee, with Lisa Floyd.
It's simple. I would say things will get better and you are enough. Because I sure didn't feel like I was enough when I was younger. I just felt flawed, but you are enough.
Episode 70, Facing the Fear of Rejection to Overcome It, with Sherry Eldridge.
It would be to remember that God's holding me, even though I can't feel his presence. He was holding me in the womb. Psalm 139 says, he was there when I was being woven together in the secret places of the womb. And he was there when I was rejected by my birth mother. And he's here with me now. And so many times we can't see his hand in things. We can't see his sovereign hand. But he promises, and he's always faithful to never leave us or forsake us. And so that's what I remind myself of, and that's what makes me strong.
Episode 71, How to Break Free of the Power of Trauma's Grip, with Becky Perkins.
It would absolutely be, tell your parents. Just tell somebody. And, that's the advice I would give to any survivor is tell somebody. Don't wait. Don't struggle with it on your own, in silence. If the person that you choose to tell is not supportive, forget them and move on to somebody else who will be. Life is so short and so precious, and we don't deserve to suffer. It's not our fault when abuse happens to us, and, we deserve to be happy, to be healthy. And the best way to do that is to tell somebody and get that help. To recover. We all deserve that.
Episode 72, Growing by Doing the Work Necessary to Heal, with David Moody.
I know this is going to sound really weird, but I wouldn't change anything because everything happened the time period it needed to happen. If I had there are times when I wish I had said something as a kid to my parents. Well, in the mid 60s, if that had gotten out in the neighborhood, I would have been toast. So society didn't handle this, didn't deal with it when I was coming along. So I wouldn't change anything. And I really wouldn't give myself any advice other than to say, believe in yourself sooner and also dream big sooner. So that's probably the only advice I would give, because I really wouldn't change anything from the timetable that everything transpired, because the world wasn't ready to deal with it the way it is now, and the way we're improving, and the way we have organizations to help, the internet. So society wasn't ready for a baby boomer to deal with it the way we are now.
Episode 73, Boosting Your Confidence and Overcoming Negative Beliefs, with Mike Gonsalves.
I think it would have to be that just to believe, and it sounds so simple and cliche, but just to believe in yourself, just to believe in yourself that, that there's greatness within you. Like if I could go back, I'd ask myself, I would go back and tell myself, you're awesome. And I would tell myself, like, just because you're not good at this over here doesn't mean you're not good. It takes the focus away on what you are good at. And so I would almost like tell myself, like, hey, focus on what you're good at. Don't worry about the things that you're not good at, because that's what we tend to do. Yeah, I wasn't good in academics. Yeah, I never won a spelling bee. Yeah, I didn't do well in math. I still don't. But you know what? Yeah, Mike, you don't do that well, but man, look at these things over here. Look at how you make people laugh. Look at how people want to pick you, to be the football captain. Look how fast you run. Look how good you throw the football. I'd almost want to tell myself, hey, man, don't worry about the things you don't do so well. Focus on the things you really do well and be proud of those damn things, and don't worry about the things that you don't do well. So if I could go back, Melissa, that's what I would do. I would tell myself to not beat myself up for the things I don't do well and really give myself credit and focus on the things I do well. That's what I would do.
Episode 74, Giving a Voice to the Innocent with Jamie Sivers.
I would, and I'd let myself know that parents can abuse, and that I wouldn't have been in trouble. I think I probably would have told sooner had I known those things.
Thanks for listening to the show today. This has been the Grass Gets Greener podcast, episode 95. Go to thegrassgetsgreener.com/recap3. So recap in the number 3, and that's because this is the 3rd overall recap episode. So that's where you can find the show notes, where I will have a link to all of the episodes that are mentioned here. So if you want to go and check any of those out, they'll be there for you. And also leave a comment. Let me know which one resonated with you the most. I would love to hear that from you. And if you enjoyed this episode, then definitely be sure to come back next week for part 2, where we're going to hear from the rest of my guests from year 2. So from episodes 75 through 93. And just as a reminder, in the meantime, if you've been listening to the show and you enjoy what I'm doing here, and you haven't had a chance yet to leave the show a rating and review over on iTunes or Stitcher, it would really mean a lot to me if you could just take a minute to do that over the course of the next couple weeks, so that we could get a little boost in the rankings going into year 3 and help, more survivors find the show so that they can be helped by it as well and not feel alone in what they're going through. And so if you have a minute to do that, I would really appreciate it, and it would help out the show. Other than that, just thank you, and as always, have hope.